What's happening, everyone? Rachel West and Rick Stroud here. And Rick, as you reported earlier, the Bucs have gone ahead and fired offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, along with 5 other assistant coaches, and then an additional 3 assistant coaches have gone ahead and decided to retire. I mean, they had the league's worst run game this past year, went from scoring 30 points a game last season to 18 this season. The second largest single season scoring drop off in NFL history. So I feel like the handwriting's kind of always been on the wall here for a while now, at least. So this is probably more a question of when these changes were going to be made as opposed to if they were going to be made.
Well, I think in the case of Byron Leftwich, maybe, it was kind of ironic. They came to one Buck place, the coaches did, and they went into their lockers, and each locker had a commemorative NFL football that was painted, congratulating them on winning back-to-back NFC South championships, division titles for the first time in franchise history. And then an hour later or so, it was, thank you, you're fired. So not exactly what you'd hope for if you're those coaches. But I think certainly the case of Byron Leftwich, we know the troubles they had scoring on offense. This seems like even more to me, though, Rachel, because they basically fired their entire offensive staff. The running backs coach obviously is gone, Clyde Christensen. Their quarterbacks coach retired. You got the wide receiver coach, Kevin Garver, was fired. And then a bunch of other coaches, just reading through the list, Lori Locust. We mentioned Todd McNair, quality control coach, Jeff Kastl. I mean, some of these folks aren't going to be replaced. They were merely part of a large staff that Bruce Arians had built here, larger than probably any in the NFL. But I think there's more to it, too. I believe that they are recognizing they have a horrible salary cap situation. One of the first things Todd Bowles said in his meeting with all his staffers before he started firing them individually was, hey, we're almost $60 million over the salary cap. We're not going to sign many or any free agents this year. So this is a return to some of the old Buck days, I'm afraid, and might be a message to Tom Brady as well.
Truly an offensive overhaul on the coaching staff there. When it pertains to the offensive coordinator position, there's been a few names floating around as to who might just end up replacing Byron Leftwich. So what are some names that kind of come to mind for you?
Well, you immediately look around and you go, who are the guys that are being talked about by a lot of teams? And I think, that list might start with Bill O'Brien, who coached Tom Brady in New England. He's also a candidate for that offensive coordinator's job, which I think he's more likely to take, being from Boston, the Boston area, and having coached there before. We'll have to wait and see. Todd Monken, who's the Georgia offensive coordinator, won back-to-back national titles. He's a guy that worked here, before Bruce Arians came in that final year as offensive coordinator and did a nice job. Of course, he's won 2 national championships. Todd has not been contacted by the Bucs. It doesn't mean he wouldn't take the call. Simply as we do this podcast, or this recording at least, he has not talked to them. And then you go from there, in-house Thad Lewis, who's a bright young coach that was an offensive assistant that, played quarterback at Duke and was with 6 or 7 other NFL teams, a rising star, according to Bruce Arians. You wonder if they stay in-house. You can even speculate a Dan Mullen, former Florida coach, who's out there with Kyle Trask as the only quarterback under contract. Maybe he makes sense here in Tampa. So we probably won't know for a little while. But those are some of the names that just pop into our heads right now.
Yeah, well, the Bucs are now one of many, many NFL teams that are in search of a new offensive coordinator. So we'll see how all that fighting amongst all of them turns out. But the question that everyone wants to know, Tom Brady, how does this, if at all, impact him staying in Tampa, going somewhere else, retiring, not retiring, all that good stuff?
Well, I think it impacts him greatly because, again, I think what we're seeing here is a return to 2009 when the Bucs hired Raheem Morris, and they had 3 years of uncapped years. They had made the purchase of Manchester United. They had a huge debt service on that, and they were able to spend $1 or $300 million on labor, and they decided to go the cheaper route. They made Mark Dominic the GM. They made Raheem the head coach, and they didn't sign any free agents to speak of for 2 or 3 years. So when Todd went to the meeting and told them, like, we're way over the salary cap, and you look at who they fired. Clyde Christensen is one of Tom Brady's closest coaching friends, and somebody that's no longer here. So either they're going to hire somebody that's going to be the quarterback's coach or has one to bring with them. If it's not a Bill O'Brien or somebody that Tom knows, I think the writing's on the wall. Because if you think about it, if they don't have money to sign free agents and rebuild this offensive line, do some of the things that they need to do, it's just not an attractive job for him. He's going to want to win. He's going to want to win right away. And I just think that they're sending a signal, much like they did in 2009, that we've got to pay off this debt service. We've got to get younger. That means more inexperienced players. Not going to be able to rebuild the offensive line. Got to do more things through the draft. So to me, it's a clear signal, I think, that Tom Brady either is going to retire, or if he's going to play next season, it's not going to be with the Bucs. And now that farewell speech that he made after his last game starts to make a little bit more sense. I think there was a reality that set in over there at $1 that we're going to have to now suck it up a little bit and go back to some of the old days and figure out a way to make this team competitive again.
Yep. Just as Tom Brady did it after the 2019 season, he was looking out for Tom and what would be the best situation for him. So he's definitely going to be doing that again. And as much as the Tampa fans want that to be him staying here, it might just not be. But we will see until that decision is officially made and hopefully not changed 40 days later. But we'll see. So we'll be keeping up with all of your work and make sure everyone you are following along with all of the Bucs coverage that we have for you over on social media at Sports by Tampa Bay Times, as well as over at tampabay.com.